of faces because yeah, that's
Well, so welcome to the fireside, Gareth. It was we were going to meet the week before last, but I was incommunicado. Well, I just couldn't do it because, as I said, I was away and didn't have my professional recording equipment. So, how are you? Just tell us where are you coming from today? Is that your lounge room, or is that a real
no.
building?
This started, I suppose, in my workroom during lockdown. It was my daughter's bedroom, but she left home around lockdown time. She decided that I'm out of it. Just before I think it was just before lockdown, so she moved out, and so I settled in here. This is I live in Ramsbottom, which is most people have heard of it. No one knows where it is.
Yeah, well, it's
Which
the sort of name that you remember, isn't it?
it means Garlic Valley to do the local
Oh,
local historian. So Rams is a form of wild garlic.
I
Um,
always
yeah.
assumed it was going to be in North London where you live.
No. I've grown up and I'm still in Manchester and I'm still here.
Aha, you're one of those.
Yeah,
God, all the Northerners.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
my family, well, as you know, I'm Australian, but or you should know because I keep saying it. But
yeah. I never
but the rest of
guessed.
my family come from Birmingham,
There you
except
go.
my mum, who was born in Wales. And yeah, I don't know if you know David Swallow, but
I do.
he made the mistake once of questioning my mother's heritage, Welsh heritage. She didn't like that.
No,
She didn't like
no.
that at
He's
all. I've
he's
got
up
it
in
on
York,
video.
isn't
I'll
he?
have to.
Does
Sorry.
does David is he still up? Is he in York or somewhere where he used to
Yeah,
live? I
he
can't.
lives in
Yeah,
York. Yeah, I saw him
yeah.
the week before last because we were all up in York for TL week.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so it was nice to get in real life all the people that I work with for the rest of the year virtually. But
It's nice to
yeah,
see people from the sort of the shoulders, see the rest
from
of
the
them and
shoulders
go, ha,
down.
ha.
Yeah.
So that's what you look like. And it's
Well, the only thing then is you've got to put your like I'd have to put my trousers on. I don't
don't
feel
bother.
that
It's
comfortable
all
doing
right.
that.
It's all our mental image. It's
Yeah.
just qualifies it.
So you haven't said where Ramsbottom is. Oh, that's right. It's near Manchester. So
Yeah,
you're
it's
up
just
near.
north. It's if you go in Manchester, if you we're in Manchester and you look north towards the hills,
Oh,
and you'll see a
wow.
little tower on a hill, and we're just sort of below that. And that tower is called Peel Tower. So Robert Peel, who invented the concept of the police, the
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was a local lad, and so we have Peel Tower here, and so we look to Manchester for the sunshine. It's there's a lot of precipitation, copious precipitation locally. It's very damp. It's
Yeah.
so it's usually underneath a cloud of rain. We've got clouds now. It's always clouds.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I
Oh,
heard you
good, good.
before.
I've just been doing, some of my, I feel like sort of master of the keyboards here, sort of changing up my technologies and shit. Um, so, so you live quite near to Patrick then, because he lives
Yeah.
in
He's in
Preston.
Salford. Oh, he's in Preston, is
No,
he
he
now? I
moved to
thought he was in
Preston. Yeah,
Salford.
he
Right.
got out Salford.
Yeah.
Moved to yeah, a new place in Preston.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, outside Preston in Bolton, which is just, I mean, outside, I mean, a mile or two
Yeah. Because
outside of it.
Patrick and David were regulars at our GAD events at the
Yeah, I'm sure they
BBC.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which were the most chaotic things you've ever seen in your life. They were absolute total chaos.
For some reason, I always thought that you were London based and you worked from the BBC offices in London. I
No,
don't know
no.
why.
When I was at the BBC for 20 years,
Yeah.
I got a job there by accident. I didn't. There was no plan to work for the BBC. I went for. I was leaving an agency because I worked in branding agencies and in the 1990s. And yeah, it was sort of early 2000s, probably about 2001, 2002. and I was looking for a change, looking for different things. Jin, my wife, she just said to me, "Look, it's been a long time since you've done an interview. Just apply for a load of stuff and do some interviews just for practice. Get into the
Yeah,
swing of doing it, and then go for something you really want." And one of the things that came up was a job at the BBC. So we applied for loads of stuff, and I got selected for interview, and I accidentally got offered a job, and I didn't really want it. It's but then they made it a little bit more attractive. It looked quite fun and interesting, and I really liked the guy that had interviewed me, who would be my boss, a guy called John Ryan, who was really brilliant. He was a fantastic boss. And it was for a really unusual position called brand manager North, which I always used to say it was because I was a brand manager at the BBC to start off with, but I'd always say it in a Leeds accent. Sounds much better from Yorkshire when it was brand manager North, and
yeah,
in all of the well, what's your role, brand manager North? Because pretty much everyone else in marketing seemed to come from Chiswick,
yeah.
and so it was nice being a bit unusual. It got the diversity stats up, I think, sort of having someone from the north,
Take,
and
yeah,
and then and then accessibility all happened again by accident. There was no plan. It was having a chat with a guy that I wasn't quite sure what he did, but I knew he worked in digital, and I had a bit of a grump, but we'll get to the story later on. But it was I ended up this role was created for me, and it was going to move to London, and then they announced we're moving to Salford, so they
all
just
right.
said stay there, we'll come to you,
Oh, nice.
and which took 2 years. So I did a hell of a lot of commuting, and then built the team. So that was about 2004.
So you were there for a long time.
Yeah, I
Um,
planned to stay for 2 years and
yeah.
accidentally stayed for 20, but I was enjoying myself too much. Nearly joined TPG twice. I got offered two roles at TPG. Well, off from Mike, and I always said to Mike, he said, as soon as you offer me something that looks more fun than what I'm doing, I'm with you because I'd love to work. I was like, it's the only other place I wanted to work at, was with
Yeah, that was
yourselves.
it for a lot of people.
But I was
This is
having a huge
something
amount of
new I
fun.
didn't know, but
Mm,
it would have
yeah.
been nice to work with you there as well.
It would have been fun. It would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
But at the time, I was also having an enormous amount of fun. I had a lot of trust at the BBC. Worked for some brilliant people, and with an amazing community of people. And obviously, a couple of them joined TPG as well.
yeah.
Henny and Ian, who you now work with as well, and they were brilliant. And I just felt blessed working there. It was just like brilliant. Then it all kind of fell apart very rapidly, and myself and
Why did that happen?
it's all down to a single. I mean, some people say that you don't work for organizations, you work for managers. And yeah, there was a person there that I ended up. They were just impossible to work with, and I just had enough. I was very burnt out at the time. COVID was it was a nightmare on the management side of it. It was really really difficult because we were also doing support for all the disabled staff, and at the same time they were doing a massive upgrade on desktop, and everything was it was just
Yeah.
absolute chaos and horror, and I really burnt out badly, and then the offer of redundancies came round, and I was like a rat up a drain pipe. I was like, I've got to
Yeah.
go. I can't cope with this any longer.
So is the redundancy you get based on years served type thing?
You do, and they were
Oh, so you
great. They
get
were
it. You,
dead. They were brilliant about the whole thing. The
yeah.
process was brilliantly managed, and then after I left, over a short period of time, the rest of the accessibility people all resigned as well. But now they're in very, very good hands. Well, they've been in a previous lot of very good hands, and now another pair of very good hands of Al Duggan, who's there, and
Al
Al.
Doug, do I know him?
Yeah, he should do. Well,
Yeah.
he should do.
Well, yeah,
He's
just
wonderful. I
no,
love
he's a
Al.
nice
He's
guy.
brilliant. He's brilliant.
Um,
But I worked with him at the BBC. He was like an
yeah, I thought you
extension of the
had.
accessibility team.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
Wait, he's appears on the on the Rogues Gallery, so I thought I'd throw in a
Ah, there you go.
what they call in Australia a Dorothy Dixer. Easy question.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's
Nah.
a
It's honestly,
Dorothy.
I'm so facial blind
It's a
and I can't remember anyone's name.
oh,
I'm
I
gonna
can't remember people's
no.
names.
I thought, and I'm gonna confess, before I met you, I thought you were two people. And and I and I don't know whether this is just my neurodivergent ADHD head just screwing everything up, but I honestly thought you were two different people. And then I
Did you
met
like
you, and
both of
then
them?
well, I always reserve any
Yeah,
decision on that
too
until I
good.
meet someone. But yeah, I was quite pleasantly surprised, and I thought, well, that's a lot
No, I was
easier than
just
trying to
thinking.
remember these two different people that seemed incredibly similar. and
Yeah, it
and
was.
and I was like, but is his name different? Because I thought I knew they were both called Steve, and I had an idea one of them was probably called Faulkner, and I couldn't remember the name of the other.
Oh well, I'm sure. I don't really
Get that
stand
out.
apart at all. Hey, I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you later, but I'll ask you now, because I thought you might have some interesting perspective on it. But you know that recently there was the BAFTA awards,
Hmm.
and there was the incident where the guy with Tourette's was shouting out racial slurs.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on that?
Um, well, it's difficult being on the outside of what
Yeah,
happened and not being there, and often being within an organization when stuff happens publicly, you end up you end up with a lot more information than could be said publicly and all the rest of it. I thought there was a lot of things that I felt were deeply wrong about the way it was managed and handled in the first place. Not discussing beforehand where he would be comfortable to sit
yeah,
and all the rest of it, placing him right near a microphone. It's brilliant. I mean, it's just, uh,
yeah.
I'm hoping that was just massive incompetence because
Rather than,
yeah,
yeah,
I don't think it was anything else, but whoever sat and did that was just a deeply incompetent individual. And that happens. We all make mistakes. We all do really stupid things, and that was a really stupid thing by whoever sat him there
well, I
and
mean,
organised that.
yeah,
I
there's
don't
lots
think it
of
was
stupidity within the,
within the world. I mean,
yeah.
you switched on the TV now, and it's just there's so much of it. And I'll come back to the thing about stupidity in a second. From someone said something to me years ago. That's always I have lots of little things, little mantras and sayings that I live my life by. And I go, oh, I remember I put that together with that, and they always make me smile. But I think the way it was handled afterwards was appalling. I mean, that was the worst. The people who were on the receiving end of that, there was no there was no real apology for the impact of that. There was no proper discussion about it. It just seemed to be a PR mess.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's. I mean, I just heard about it. It's something that I, was aware of, but it's not a story that I wanted to like
Mm.
get deeply. It just doesn't interest me that much. I mean, it interests me, but it's like I didn't want to have that sort of, vampiric sort
Hopefully
of
people will
desire.
learn. Hopefully people learn from it. I mean, you've got to fall over and hurt your knees to find out that falling over can mean you hurt your knees. Hopefully this is a big learning experience for, the production company, the people involved, and for the organizations involved. I felt like but the handling afterwards was absolutely
Joe, what happened
rubbish.
to the guy, the person with Tourette's? It was a bloke, wasn't it? Can't
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
he's a Scottish chap. I think, if I remember
I
rightly,
mean,
I've come
it
across him before.
obviously sounded like a very traumatic experience for him.
It was traumatic experience, and people will still be impacted,
Yeah.
who are there, and there was an opportunity to talk about this to open it up, to bring people together, to deal with this afterwards. And it just seemed to be everyone went in the corner. There were no real apologies given, and it was a mess afterwards. It was like no one really wanted to deal with it, you know. And this is the thing with life. This everything is all the interesting stuff are the things that no one wants to deal with. You know, no one wanted to
Yeah.
deal with digital accessibility properly at the BBC. Is probably why I ended up with it.
Yeah.
Because I think probably someone said who wants to deal with it, and everyone else took a step backwards, and everyone go well done for volunteering. It was that. It wasn't anything like that, but if you know, I feel that there's a lot of that happens. But the
Yeah. Yeah.
stupid thing I remember, there was a guy. I worked for this fantastic advertising agency for a while in the 90s called Barrington Johnson Lorraine's, which is now something else. I can't remember, but it was owned by three guys, and they were heading towards sort of bowing out and retiring out of it, and they were old school ad guys. And one of them I went for lunch with early on, and you know, it was a big agency. I think it was the largest independent agency in the UK or outside of London or something at the time. It was huge. And he always used to try and fathom out the youngsters. And he gave me a lot of advice, and he asked me, you know, whether you thought you want a career in advertising. I said, I don't know, I've just turned up, mate. I've got a clue. I'm just here
Yeah.
paying rent. I've got nappies to buy. You know, it's that kind of, you know, for, um, and and he gave me a couple of bits of sound piece advice, and one of them was, he said, the thing is, he said, you've got to always remember, he said, you never underestimate fucking stupidity and ignorance of the general public. He went, if you ever underestimate it, you'll mess it up. He said, they're just you know, chicken tonight. He went, look at that, it's disgusting. It's like glue in a jar. Give it a happy song, they'll
Yeah.
buy it. We won't
People
be able to
love it.
manufacture it. They just shovel it. And he told me, he said that all adverts as well have two things. He said, this is how stupid they are. There's two types of advert. One is say it, that just tell them the thing. Go here, buy that, this much, this is what it will do. Fact. And the other one, we've got really nothing to say about this. So sing it. And he went, they're even better. So give it a happy song, give it a funny joke, make it weird, whatever, but do a thing and everyone will talk about it and go around singing the song and they'll buy it.
Yeah.
And he went, that's the most successful things. It's just, and he said, that's it. The stupidity of the general public. He went, don't underestimate it. And then you'll go far in advertising.
Right.
And, and then you see Brexit and, you know, the
Yeah.
rise of reform and all the rest of it. And you just go, yeah, every single time I see something where you just go, what are we all thinking? And then I remember what he said to
Yeah.
me and I just go, yeah, he was
Well,
right.
there was stuff on the news today about that the court case just finished about the guy that stabbed the other
Oh,
young
it's awful.
man. Yeah, but it was his family was saying, please don't use it as a, you know, as a platform for division and violence. And the first thing that Farage did was
Yeah,
come
of
out and
course he does.
use it as
And
so it's unfortunate.
it's dreadfully and people will buy it. You know, people
Yeah,
lap it up, and it appeals to sort of the baseness of human beings. You know, whether it's football teams or racism, whatever. It's my gang versus your gang. You're different, and we're gonna have a fight over it. And it's just unbelievably stupid. But
let
that's
me
we're very good at that as humans. We're really clever at that.
yes.
But I've got the most battered water bottle in the world, and it's an
Let me
Apple
just
one.
find the your rogues gallery,
Oh God, here we go. I
Gareth.
won't. At least I know who one of them it'll be.
Well, you should
You'll have a
know.
picture of me on there, and I won't recognise myself. This is going to be there'll be a trick one.
Well, I would get to, yeah. I mean, it's just for me to sort of say, you know, if you don't know who they are, then I can just say sarcastic things about them. So it's the way. It's just a
And then you get
reason.
them on as guests.
Yeah, no.
I th-
Now, oh, well, hold on. Hold on. It just, I don't know why it should just
Technology, mate. We
it
don't
should
work in it.
be sort of instantaneous, but it's
Here we
not.
go.
Okay,
Here we go.
there we are.
Oh, wow.
So can you see who's on there? I usually
Uh,
have okay. Oh, there we go. Look. So top left. Do you know who this person
Three
is?
of them I recognize, and I can't think who the hell they are already, which
Okay,
is great.
so
Well,
top
that's
left.
Miss. Is that Mr. Swallow?
Yeah, he's always in the same place, doing something different, but he's always in that same slot. This is the 18th time or the 19th time. Now, the swallow, what is there is that when I was up in a tetralogical week, I was staying at a hotel, and the hotel had this device, which was they basically rented out umbrellas.
Mm.
So you could swipe your card, and you could take an umbrella because the weather's always inclement. Now, Dave was just intrigued by this. He wanted to know where he could buy into the company. I mean, be nice to have that sort of money just to be able to invest in things. But yeah, so that's what that is. Next up, now
Oh well, that's easy, isn't it? Is that Mr. Lauka?
that is Mr. Lauka. And it's back to front. It's me. I've taken a I've taken a selfie of me in the mirror.
I was going to say he's looking a bit. There's a bit too much going on top by that. So I thought that's not Mr. Matt Lauker at top. It's Mr. Lauker in
No,
the middle, because
yeah,
he's like me. He feels every raindrop. Every
yeah,
snowflake
exactly.
that lands, we
Yeah.
feel it.
And that is, you don't make, well, it's back to front, but you can't see it. So, but it says you don't make friends with Waycag. It's a play on you don't make friends with salad from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's,
You're still doing the t-shirts,
oh, I'm
and
still doing the t-shirts.
have you ever done one that's as offended as many people as mine? And I
No,
should have worn that. I should have worn that for this. You invite me back, I'll dig the t-shirt out.
yeah, I don't know whether yeah, who else bought it? Phil Store is his
Hmm.
name? Phil Store. Anyway, I can't remember. There's a number of people who
Oh,
bought.
oh God, his name's just gone right out of my head. He's the guy that did. But it is Phil. Looks like a wizard. Lives up in the
Yes,
northeast.
yes,
And
yes.
his second name's just gone right out of my head. He's an absolutely brilliant guy.
He's
He
writing a
did
book
some
at the
work for
moment.
us. Oh, he's brilliant. He built, was it HMRCs? He was like architected their QA framework, and
Oh,
is
really?
oh yeah, he's phenomenal. What's Phil's surname? It's gone right out of my head. Oh, this is it. I'm
Yeah,
rubbish. I'll remember it in about 3 hours' time. I'll just shout out a name randomly. My wife will go,
that's all
"What?
right.
What are you going on about now?"
So yeah, so there's Pat, and that's one of the t-shirts that you can buy. I think I'm the only person who ever bought that one, which is quite the case for many of the t-shirts. So, but there's some that are popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, that one I pulled was one of the more popular. But anyway, uh, so yeah, that's Pat. Pat's always close to my heart, even when he's not around. And Pat, Dave, and I meet up every couple of months to chew the accessibility fat.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Well, that's Jonathan, isn't it?
Yeah,
So, Jonathan and I, now we go back quite a long way. Mr. Hassel and I, God, when did we first meet? I think we met briefly a couple of times. He was at the BBC, so he was like a editor working. There was a standards and guidelines team. So the BBC had all of its own standards and guidelines. We had our
yeah.
own accessibility. We kind of parted company with WCAG in about 2006 because it just didn't do what we needed it to do, and it wasn't doing it fast enough. And I had an enormous amount of pressure coming from the executive of, no, we're not going to wait for standards to turn up. fix the
Yeah.
problem. And then, so what we did, the reason why we had our own standards and guidelines was they were, if you, the beginning of them, they always said this is for supplying or working for the BBC. But because money has gone into it and there was a policy of openness, we had to publish them publicly so people could see where the money had gone. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that they do is, yeah, we just build it and give it away, and here's how we do it. And so all of the things that were in the standards and guidelines weren't things that we tried to do, they were all things that we were doing. And so they were
Well, that's good.
retrospective, so
Yeah.
they were a reflection of practice, not a thing that we used. So
Oh,
it was
that's
like no one read
great.
them because
Yeah.
there was no point, because we were always already doing it. And so it was a facing thing. It was more of a way of showing people this is our baseline, and they weren't about things to try and achieve. There was no AAA, AAA, or anything like that. This
Yeah.
was just this is the minimum. So Jonathan, there had done was working as one of the standards and guidelines team, and I think it was just roughly about the time he was at the BBC before me within that team, but roughly about the time that I joined, he went off and joined a project that was being run called BBC Jam, which was a
Yeah.
brilliant idea, which was coming out of education. It was a huge millions and millions of pounds going behind it. And the idea was for the BBC to work with all of the educational software, or lots of the educational software companies in Britain, and build all of the stuff, all of the educational materials for whiteboards, for interactive whiteboards and in school and
Yeah.
everything, to make sure that commercial stuff doesn't end in there, with loads of McDonald's branding or
Yeah.
whatever. They didn't want that to get into schools. And Jonathan joined, and this was a massive Flash platform, basically because it was
Yeah.
all interactive and games and stuff. And so he joined that project to try and build an accessibility capability within that. And they started doing lots of research. It was incredibly well funded. It ran for a while because it took a long time to establish it and put it together, and it was a long phase. And then it hit massive legal problems, and
Really?
there was stuff that hadn't been done. Due diligence hadn't been done process wise by someone very high up, and the entire thing came tumbling down,
Oh, that's a
which was
shame.
it was a huge shame. I mean, millions of pounds were wasted, but it was all very public. It was incredibly embarrassing for the organisation, and suddenly loads of people are out of work. Loads of quite a few agencies I think hit the wall because of it, because they'd staffed up to deal with the work that had been promised with them. It was an absolute shit show. So Jonathan was caught up in all the rest of this. Now at the time there was a new guy who joined as the head of UX from Razorfish called Richard D. Titus. Um, Most people, nobody knew what the D stood for, but he was like 6'4" Californian,
Yeah.
dude, and always in incredibly expensive suits, and very good shoes. So I remember he wore brilliant. All of his shoes were spot on.
There
Um,
was, yeah, there was, it's funny you say there's the guy from, I think his name's Jake Abner from
I know
ING in
Jake.
Europe.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know Jake. Yeah,
And I
yeah.
used to see him at Seasun, and I'd taken a picture of his shoes a number of times because he's, well, with his permission. Um,
Silver crocodile skin
yeah, he's always got
shoes
these
whilst
really
wearing a
snazzy.
Well, I went whale watching with him when we were there, and he was wearing reflective mirror crocodile shoes and a day glow tangerine suit. I mean, if there were any whales out to sea, they could spot us a mile off, and they were like, "Okay." It was like
We're talking about Jake now?
Jake, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, he's got a flair for the eccentric as Jake. But
Yes.
anyway, so Richard joined, Richard Titus, and he basically created UX at the BBC. So there was lots of UXs split in teams, but he just said, "No, we're going to create a team. I want everyone who's a designer or has anything to do with design. You all work for me." And he just
That's
suddenly
cool.
created, and information architects, design research, accessibility. That's all stuff to do with people. You're all now working for me. And so I was sort of running, heading up the accessibility team at the time. This is before Henny and Ian. So there was Lucy, now Policino, was Dodd at the time. Andrew Strachan, who was an amazing engineer on broadcast access services side. Kevin Carey, who left the team to become chairman of the RNIB, which was a bit of a step up. Um, there were some others as well around, but anyway, memories all over the place. I'm trying to remember who was there at the time. But anyway, but what happened was there was another project called Project Canvas, which was starting. So the BBC had got together with all the other broadcasters and British Telecom and all sorts, and he was going, "We're going to build a new TV platform, which is going to be amazing. It's going to be connected." This is about 2008, something like this, and it's going to be absolutely incredible. It's not a PC, it's not a set-top box, it's something in between. We don't know what it is yet, but it's going to be the future of television. And they approached me and said, "Could you write the accessibility requirements for it?" And I was like, "Okay, well, what is it?" And they went, we don't know, we haven't built it yet." So it's like, right,
So this is
okay.
iPlayer, I presume.
Yeah. So I was given the choice to go and work for this project, which became a platform called UView. So UView is now huge. It's in like 5 or 6 or 7 million homes in the UK and all the rest of it, and it
Yeah.
replaced BT's and it became consortium. The BBC basically built that. It was all paid for um, by all of the other members of the consortium, so no public money went into it. But there was over 100 BBC engineers and staff who went in there and
Wow.
built it. So I joined. I was offered I could either go and do that or I could work with Richard and that. And I said, "Well, actually, to work from the beginning." So I'd done iPlayer, so world's first long form VOD service thing. We got that out the door with, we'd made sure it was completely screen reader accessible apart from Jaws 8 because nothing could be made Jaws 8 accessible. It was an absolute terrible program.
Yeah.
It was appalling. But yeah, we did our best with Jaws 8, and then Jaws 9 came along and saved the day. So we got all of the subtitling out, audio description, signed, because I was told when it went to launch, it had to be as least as accessible as television. So all of that was done. Kevin and myself, we'd worked on with all the design teams. We built the whole thing, so it worked. Um, We'd done a version 2 of it. I think there was a second release as well, which had moved into streaming. So it was peer to peer, then went to streaming.
Right.
And then I got the chance to do a TV platform, and I couldn't turn it up. And I'd already written a lot of the and worked on the help scheme boxes. Bless you for digital
Thank you.
switch for digital switchover. So I'd worked within that team on the digital switchover box, but this was an opportunity to do something much bigger. So I said I want to go and do that. So I went on attachment to on this project Canvas, which became UView, and they went, "Well, what happens here?" And I went, "Well, I've heard there's a guy being made redundant in Jam who sounds amazing. I don't know. I didn't really know Jonathan particularly well, and I was like, go and talk to him
Yeah.
because he could run this." And so Jonathan then moved over. They merged accessibility and usability at the time for some reason into one team. I can't remember why, but that was eventually split out again. So Jonathan was there for about 18 months, something like that, maybe a bit longer. Bless you, crikey,
Yeah,
hay
I know.
fever.
I've got hay fever
Yeah,
through.
same here. Horrible, isn't it? I hate
Well,
trees.
I never used to get it. It just started the last couple of years. But
Ah, but Jonathan joined, and so yeah, he stepped. We did do some work. We had this bizarre little project called the ATK, which I'll tell you all about over a glass of whiskey one day. Which was yeah, because the weird thing is the BBC built the first overlays.
right.
We had three. I didn't build the first one, but I was product owner of it, and I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that built it. It'll come back to me in a minute.
And
I was
what happened
talking.
to them though?
We didn't need them anymore. They were very,
Yeah.
very good. The first one was called Betsy. It was built in the 90s.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was a genius thing because all the layouts in early .co.uk were all tables-based layouts. So no CSS anywhere on the
Yeah.
site, anything like that. So this one guy who was learning Perl script came out with this genius idea of building a server-side engine that took a page and stripped out the tables and then gave it a completely new structure and ranged it left and gave it CFAX colors which you could change and nice big fonts and high contrast and And so if you were using a magnifier, because everything was anchored left, it was really easy to find. Everything had headings put into it, so it worked with early screen readers and all the rest of it. And so, you just had a button on each of the page and it just parsed the page, stripped it out, and
Sounds
you could
good.
you could customize it. It was a great idea and it fixed the problem. We eventually I had to eventually get rid of Betsy because she wasn't coping with complexity any longer. She'd got very
Yeah,
old and very wonky and was doing weird things. We kept her going for a long time, not because necessarily because screen reader users were using it or magnifier using it. The things had moved on, and we'd also fixed a lot of the sites and stuff, so it was all working anyway with those machines. We just found out that we were having a huge amount of foreign traffic coming through it into news pages because there was a lot of and there still are a lot of countries that block the BBC's news output,
yeah,
and people were finding these long string Perl script generated URLs were not being picked up by governments, and they were
no,
sharing
no,
news stories through
gotcha.
government firewalls through accessibility.
Huh?
And so we left it going, and then eventually what happened is that the World Service was put onto the dark web, and so
Yeah,
we killed off Betsy. So you can find the whole of World Service and dark
everything.
web and Telegram format and all sorts of stuff. It all exists to go round government firewalls, and
Brilliant.
so we no longer needed to do that. So
But
yeah, but we had this other
Hasselt,
one.
Hasselt
We,
had nothing to do with any of these
well, no,
bots.
the third one was a prototype I started, which we thought about customization, and we were looking at cognitive accessibility,
Yep.
and we looked at server-side voicing. I think Sarah Proc, we had a long chat with them at one point, but it was just too expensive if we were a small website, a speaking page for someone who doesn't need a screen reader, who just wants the article read to them. It's quite good, and Sarah Proc's voices were amazing, and but it was the scale was too big. The cost would have
Yeah.
been enormous, and voicing at that point, the licenses were extremely expensive. I mean, they're just all built in it. It's cheap as chips now, but in those days it was phenomenally expensive, and so we couldn't do it. But we built in all sorts of other bits and pieces, and we were looking at people with Erland syndrome and all
Yeah.
sorts of stuff. And it was those edges that no one ever talks about.
Well,
And
I suppose, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
being the BBC national broadcaster, you really got to think about
yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, and we didn't really, and this was like almost like a research bit. So Jonathan and I still worked together on that. He did iPlayer version 3, I think it was, that he ended up working on, and then I ended up working back on iPlayer 4 with Henny. But yeah, I mean, he was there for a while, and then he left and set up his agency, Hassle Inclusion.
Actual
So
inclusion.
yeah, so he's been going, doing great guns as far as I'm
I
aware.
always, I always like that how there's some people that do it. Dennis Lembry does it as well, has done it. But Jonathan Haston does it, where he will talk about himself in the third person on a social media post. You know,
Yeah,
it will be from him, but he'll say Jonathan Hassel of, and it always just cracks me up. It's like because Dennis Lembry has his WebEx, he had easy tweet and well, no, easy twerp was it? No, it wasn't easy. Yeah,
easy.
easy twerp. No, but he had an early he built a Twitter client that accessible Twitter client that was
Yeah,
popular back in the early days, but it was called Easy
wasn't yeah,
Chirp,
easy chirp,
Easy Chirp, not Easy Twerp. Um,
easy.
but anyway, so he's got three different handles, and
Mm.
when he talks about one, he talks about like you say, I always just find it weird. That's all. Talking about
Yeah,
himself in the third
because
person.
it's the only time you kind of do it is when you're writing your own biography because you've got to write it for
Yeah.
someone else, and I hate doing it. It just, I'm always sitting there. There's this sort of massive cringe for me doing it. I find it really. I
Yeah, it's
I'm
just
actually quite a shy person. I just my ADHD won't shut up, and
but yeah.
my my
How long have
dyslexia
you
doesn't like to be spoken about, but my ADHD won't shut up about it.
how long have you been diagnosed, had diagnosis of ADHD?
Oh my God. There's a weird thing. So I had a very, I would call it a very privileged upbringing. So my dad, who's since gone, he's no longer with us, but my dad was a drama therapist, one of the first in the UK back in the 1970s. But he was a headmaster of special schools, and I think he started off as a headmaster of a special school for the American forces down in Huntingdon or wherever. And then he got this job offer in Manchester to become the head of a school in the early 1970s called Ewing School, which is gone now. And Ewing was a residential school and it had loads of kids in it. All of them were aphasic, and all of them had communication difficulties. All of them came from different authorities because the authorities couldn't cope with the needs of these kids.
Yeah.
And, and we were still, now you would probably say a lot of them were autistic and various other syndromes. There was all the syndromes. I mean, it was a plethora of
Yeah.
syndromes. And, everything from there was one called floating harbor syndrome. I don't know why that's stuck in me. It might be called something differently now. I need to look it up, but it always sounded very the most poetic sounding syndrome I've ever heard. But
But
there was
what would
float.
the the what were the characteristics of floating
I
arms?
can't remember. All I remember is its name. I remember my dad saying it. I
Yeah.
was probably just a kid, and it always struck me, and it just stuck in my head. And
So
kids
anyway,
with fetal alcohol syndrome and all sorts. But
yeah.
these kids lived there, and we lived there too. So from age 2, I lived at Ewing School, and we had our tea over at the school, and I went on school holidays with the kids, and
But you didn't go
after school
to
we
the
all,
school.
no, well, sometimes I was sat in lessons with them. We just got. I remember my mum taught there for a bit, and she was teaching embroidery to the kids. My mum was embroiderer, and there's me on a sewing machine doing machine embroidery with the kids in the school, and we used to do the school discos, and we went and played in the playground after school. And we all went out and played volleyball with Arthur Thomas and all the other characters that were there, and they were my mates. We became friends, and I think it was a hugely privileged upbringing is being there
It sounds
because
like just
because it,
sounds
it
like
kind of
it's
set me up to just deal with anything.
yeah.
It's just people.
Well, part of yeah. I mean,
So I never got diagnosed. I mean, I was like the mildest case. So I think it was like, nowadays I don't call my conditions disabilities. They're just I think of them as
well,
characteristics.
yeah. I I know this thing about autism that it's not considered a disability. It's neurotypical, but ADHD can, oh, I don't know. It
Well,
all,
anything can be disabling. This
yeah,
is there's situations when it's a massive pain in the ass, and I struggle with reading. I had to read everything 3 times
well,
because I'm not quite sure. First time, that's not what it says. Second time, it's probably close. Third time, I'm now filling in the gaps, and it
yeah,
starts to make sense because my brain just does not process language very well. And
gotcha.
you know how, because dyslexia is here. I always like pointing out my dyslexia is here and
Yeah,
my ADHD is about here and here. So it's the sort of visual word form area and that bit because dyslexics, what happens is you read a word or you see a word, a collection of glyphs, you attach a sound to that word, then you attach a meaning to the sound. Something
gotcha.
goes wrong in the middle and the recognition of the glyphs to the audio to the comprehension goes wonky because it's a developmental disorder of that part. This part is on my left, this part of the brain, and which is why sometimes you find not everyone, but you find a lot of dyslexics malaprop quite a lot, or get slightly wrong words when they're talking.
Right.
They'll say a reflectory table instead of refectory. Yeah, and I've heard that one. Or my favourite one um, was someone who kept saying knowledge suppository instead of repository.
My
I,
mum, I don't know whether my mum was dyslexic, but she used to, yeah, she used to say words. incorrect links, for
Yeah, I
example.
just always knowledge suppository has always stuck with me, and this person kept saying it. And I remember someone else in a meeting once saying, "And all the good it will do, you may as well stick it up your ass." It's which I always thought was lovely. But
She used to say lying prostitute on the ground instead of
no, this
prostrate.
is that's exactly it. I love
Yeah,
things like that. It's
yeah.
it's like I'm just
But
going to lie. I'm just going to lie prostitute on the ground, and
ground, yeah.
you can have that as a mental
Can we
image.
just whip through this?
Let's go for
The
this. So Jonathan was there. He was very much
Yeah.
part of that story, and
I did.
you know,
I
and
find that
we
that picture of him. I don't know about your view of it, but like he just looks like he's going to jump out and bite me. So yeah,
hi. It's
it's Jonathan Hassel. Do you know who the next person is?
I know that face, and I
Her
can't think what her
name
name is.
is Amy Hoop, and she was a recent guest on the Fireside, and
Right, I think I watched
she
it.
does design,
Yeah.
and she talks about burnout, and she's sort of excessively adjacent, I'd say, but she's a friend of Hayden's, and she's well
Yeah.
known from speaking at various events, including State of the Browser, which I spoke at as
I've got
well.
a funny feeling we've met. You know, this is the problem is over all of these years, you meet so many people
Yeah,
at these events, or you see them speak or whatever, and it's like you're just so familiar. Or I've read a blog, or I've watched her do a presentation, and you're
yeah, and
just like,
it
do I
just
know you?
it just sort of all
It's
blends in, doesn't it?
yeah, it's the
Did
same with
I
the
meet
next
that
guy, and
person?
I can't think who the next guy is, and I'm like, there's such a familiar shot.
This is from many years ago. This is Alistair Campbell
Oh
from
God,
Low
yes, of course it
Mensa,
is.
from who's
Yes,
currently the
yeah, they were a
one
supplier
of
of
the
mine.
one of the
They were
chairs.
yeah they were one of the agencies on the roster when I because I set up design research at the BBC as well.
Oh,
So when
gotcha.
Jonathan left, when I came back, I set up design research and as an actual team on its own, and we kind of yeah and set up rebooted the accessibility team, and there was this freelancer who was knocking around doing some work in on iPlayer and who I'd heard about and called Henny Swan. May have heard of her.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And Jason, can't remember his name, he was creative director, came to see me from iPlayer and went, she's brilliant, contract's running out, please can we keep her?
Oh,
And I
nice.
was like, well, it's a bit difficult, but we managed to wrangle it, and we got Henny in on a staff contract, and then as we built, so it started out just me and her rebooting the team and building it up around that, and so Henny ended up working on iPlayer 4 was big stuff. So she did three really big ticket things when we were there. In my memory, anyway, the things I remember her most for was iPlayer 4, which was phenomenal, which was a huge leap forward in everything. And just in the pure usability of it, it was such a brilliant. You know, it's not just Henny, the entire team, but she was very much involved in that.
Involved in
And
the
Jason Fields,
development.
that's the name of the creative director, great guy. And she also did, she approached me with the idea of the mobile accessibility guidelines because we were kind of having a bit of a flip out at the time because the 2012 Olympics was turning up. The exec had decided that they wanted all of the mobile applications to be accessible by the time the Olympics turned up, and no one had ever figured out how to do that. There was nothing going on in WCAG. There was nothing going. We had no clues. So yeah, senior management, and this is where I'll bring in Al in a bit as well because Al was absolutely central to all of that as well. And then she started working on a set of sort of principles, methodologies, and approaches around inclusive design within iPlayer, which is then when she left, she asked me about it and said, "Can I take that work with me?" And I went, "Well, of course, it's yours. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's there." And then she then got involved with more people at TPG, and they built out the inclusive design principles off the back of it. But that started out as her idea when she was
Ah,
working
so
in,
that's where the inclusive, yeah. So
and then
then,
Leone and I think it was Hayden
yeah,
and others got involved, and
yeah,
Ian
Ian,
and
yeah.
stuff, and they built out around it. It was a brilliant piece of work.
Then it's
Um,
then it was withering on the vine at TPG, and then they, yeah, they
Yeah,
moved it again, and it's now in permanent sort of maintenance development.
which is good. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's yeah. Yeah,
Alistair Campbell, yeah,
yeah. He was at Nemensa, and Nemensa were one of the first agencies we had working as design research
well,
agencies, and
they're now
that's where we met for the first time. Yeah,
they've been bought by a big company now called Gain, and so they're no longer No Mensa.
yeah. Who
Um,
hasn't? It's
well,
me.
we haven't.
Please, I'm for sale. Going quite cheap.
Well, you see if the next guy is. It's.
Oh, that's Chris. I'm going to have a chat with him. I think in about a week or so's time, Mr.
I
Patno.
have never met Chris Patno. I know
Ah,
him
he's
from.
lovely.
I just. It's. He just looks well out of it there. I really like that
He
photo.
is. He's got an amazing energy to him,
Yeah,
and he'll give you a hug that's rib cracking. And he's one of the loveliest people. He's
he's
brilliant.
based in London though, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
He's up in Camden, and Chris and we just hit it off as soon as we met, and he's just got an extraordinary positive energy about
Well,
him. You
well,
know,
if
some
you.
people you just hang out with them because you just go,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna feel better about everything with half an hour with you. I'll feel
Well,
better about the world."
well, invite me to one of your
Soirees.
yeah, your soirees.
I don't
I
have
mean, you know,
soirees.
I'd like to meet the guy. So,
Yeah, if
um,
we get together, Chris is great. He comes up to Manchester every now and again, hangs out with me and Charlie.
who's he
Uh,
work for? Does he work for
Google,
Microsoft? Google,
Google.
that's
So
right.
he's like
Because he,
he was heading up accessibility for Europe and the Middle East and North and Africa, and
right.
he's
And people
and
go to the Google office and they have some sort of they have an experience, don't they? Disability
that
experience.
sounds terrible. That sounds yeah. We come out scarred.
Mm.
it's they've got an amazing research lab there.
Yeah,
It's
so
absolutely
I've
so.
heard. I
Ah,
haven't ever seen it. I've
no,
just heard
you
about.
need to get yourself an invite in there. Get in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't go to London very often,
Yeah,
even though even though it's
I
only
don't.
25 minutes on the train. It's not
Hmm.
far. I mean, I live out in the back of Burke, I live in the outer suburbs or the middle suburbs of London. Anyway, so yeah, so that's Chris.
Yeah,
I
he's got an amazing background as well, and we were talking a lot about how a while back how everyone should work as a waiter at some point in their life because it gives you such good training of dealing with some of the trickier characters that you deal with in corporate life because people generally are usually nice. I mean, I've worked in as a barman and a cellarman and all sorts of stuff in my past many years ago, and I've dealt with horrendous people. And once you
yeah,
can smile your way through it, deal with them, win them over, and all that, it's a fantastic training ground for trickiness. And he was an opera singer.
really,
Yeah, but he
well,
was he was an opera singer, and he was doing big shows, but he was chorus line and back. He was like he was like he wasn't he wasn't getting
yeah,
the lead
well,
roles, and this is like acting. If you're in the back, you're never being
yeah.
paid anything. Only the leads get the money, and he's got a phenomenal singing voice on him. But yeah, he then I don't get him on as a guest. I'll let him tell his story. He's got
Yeah,
brilliant
I should
story.
actually. I'll
Yeah,
reach
he's
out to
top.
him, see if he's
Really,
trying to
really
get.
nice guy. So Charlie Turrell, who I work with, and we do
That's
can and
right.
stuff
Yeah,
like that. So yeah, it's the three of us get together and have a drink or two every now and again.
very nice. And so next up, with we mentioned him before,
Mr. Duggan. Yeah. Now,
well,
I can tell you a thing or two about Al. I'm going to tell you a thing about two about Al Duggan. So, when I first started with the whole accessibility thing, so they gave me free rein on a project
yeah,
that they didn't even know if it was going to get the permit. There was no permission to even building it. We were building it as a prototype, and that eventually became BBC iPlayer. So there was a guy called Ben Lavender. The two people invented it. Lots of people like to claim they invented iPlayer, but it's actually only two. There's a guy called Ben Lavender and a guy called Tony Aggie. And Ben came up with this observation that loads of BBC content's being shared on BitTorrent. So why don't we torrent our own? Why don't we have our own torrent platform? Why don't we just
Yeah,
share it and
right.
give a better user experience than that crap? And then all the rest of it. And Tony was a really good friend of Ben's, but he was also controller of BBC.co.uk. He became my boss. And then I think he set up digital or ran digital at New York Public Library for a while. I don't know what Tony's up to these days, but brilliant, absolutely real visionary. Tons of pretty much everything the BBC is doing these days is probably based on something that Tony Aggie started back in the day. He was just he just was thousand flowers bloom guy, and uh, and real faith in people as well. He listened to everyone, and
So
everyone got
what is this
credit.
unlike Al?
Well, no, Al, right. So I was doing this, and then I suddenly realized I couldn't scale. I couldn't. I've got a little team. There's four of us. We're about the right size for iPlayer, but we can't scale. So I had this
Yeah.
idea of reaching out and finding everyone out there in the organization. Everyone was pretty much in West 12 or West 1 in London at those days. I was pretty much commuting in from Manchester, living in London for 2 or 3 days a week, and then working from Manchester the other 2, 3 days a week. And so I was
Was the
sort of living
BBC
in London.
covering your accommodation?
Most of it, we had to be fairly creative.
Yeah, no, no, I wasn't
I've
trying to,
I've slept on I've slept on
get
many a
stirred.
sofa. I
I'm just
slept on
thinking,
many a
yeah,
sofa and all. I was a student. I've lived in squats in my past. I don't mind. I've got no airs and graces
yeah, but
about me.
as in, like
Yeah.
now I'm older, I like to have
Oh, I
a
won't go camping anymore. I
no,
can't do
well,
any of that crap.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I was sort of split between the two worlds because they were going, well, we can't if we relocate you and your family down here, we're all going to have to relocate you back up there again. And because we're all coming up to Manchester, and
yeah.
so what is the hell is the point? So I was one of there was a few people that were kind of we were winging it, and also I used to stay a lot. The BBC World Service used to have where was it out now? Which part of London? It's not far from Regent's Park, from what I remember. But the BBC World Service had a training part to it, a training company, and they had these old Georgian houses that were about 5 or 6 stories high. There was a whole row of them that were owned by World Service, which were in an incredibly decrepit state. And they were full of journalists from around the world who were coming to the BBC to be trained in journalism. And
Uh,
people had camping stoves in their rooms and all the rest of it. It was
yeah.
full of the smells of the food of the world, and had the worst breakfast in the canteen. It was sliced white bread and margarine and packets of marmalade or
Oh,
marmite and some stewed tea. That was what you got there. But it was really cheap. It was like 15 quid a night or something to sleep there. So I lived in there quite a lot, and I met some amazing people because you went down to breakfast and you're surrounded by all of these people from different places. I
yeah,
like
yeah.
chatting to people, and I met some extraordinary individuals. And yeah, we're coming and World Service would train people up, and they would go back to their public service broadcasters wherever they are in the world, and learn from the BBC. So I used to live there quite a lot. And yeah, so I had this idea of reaching out, and I got permission to email the entire division. And I said, look, what I'm going to do, we have a couple. There's a couple of boardrooms. There was one main boardroom. What I'll do is I'll use part of my budget and get a load of sandwiches and tea, and I'll book the boardroom one lunchtime. And I sent out this email, said, look, I'm going to be in the boardroom, in next Thursday. If you're interested in accessibility, it doesn't mean you don't need to know anything about it. But if
Right.
disability access and inclusion and stuff interests you, come along and see me. I want to meet you. and or if you want free lunch because it's been paid for and I don't want it to go to waste. So if you just want to turn up some free sandwiches, there, or a brew, or if you just feel sorry for me that I've got no friends and I have to bribe people. This is what it said in the email. It was something along these lines. I
Yeah.
have to bribe people to have lunch with me, and then do that. And that's when I met Al for the first time. I'm pretty sure that was the first time I met him. He came
Did
along.
he come with the sandwiches and the
I
brew, or
don't
did
know.
he come?
It was hammered. We couldn't get everyone in the room. There were so
Wow.
many people turned
Well,
up.
that's good. That's
And
great.
I signed him up. That's where I met Ian Hamilton for the first time.
Oh yes,
Yeah, there was all
he's
sorts of people.
the guy
Games.
that games. Yeah, I
Yeah, so
know that Mike was talking to him a lot over a period of
so
time.
Ian and I, gamesaccessibilityguidelines.com. So
Yeah,
Ian runs that, but I'm one of the original co-authors to that.
gotcha.
So that was a job. But so, and he was doing the CBBS games. So a long story short, so one of my grumbles at the BBC was my son Zach at the time was about 5, and he was playing CBBS games. He has cerebral palsy, but he was then moving up to CBBC, which happens about 6 years old for kids, and he couldn't play any
Yeah,
of the games. And I was just like, this is fucking ridiculous. Why are you making accessible games, Switch accessible games for 6 year
yeah,
olds, but
but
sod
not
anyone
for
over
kids.
that age? Built from a brand manager point of view, that's building up a relationship and dropping them.
Yeah,
Where's the continuity? This was my brand manager rant early on. And then I realized it was happening in more and more and more places, and there was no joined up thinking around disabled audiences. And then I took it to my boss, who was a guy called Tim Davey, who was the director of marketing. And he just went, "This is ridiculous. This is an audience issue." And all of the accessibility, that start of it came from marketing, where
yeah.
we said, "This is about people who've paid their license fee and we're shortchanging them."
Well, yeah,
And in the Royal Charter it says the BBC are for everyone, and it doesn't caveat. It doesn't say except them. So where the
yeah,
hell is the bias coming in? Where's this going wrong? How do we fix this? So it was all, and Tim Davey was the board level sponsor. Mark Thompson, when it got to him, he went, "Why the hell isn't this already happening?" And Tony Aggie was controller of .co.uk, who was dying to do something like this, but didn't have. No one had a plan, and
yeah,
so he asked me to create a plan. And they all knew that the problem existed. Just this loud mouth brand manager ended up basically pointing it
well,
all
they need
out and being
someone
a
to
git.
sell it
But,
internally,
but
and
the
sell the concepts.
so two things that were amazing. So I ended up setting up working groups to build standards and guidelines around, because I'm always the way I don't like committee driven anything. I'm way too much of a Marxist for that. It's I'm not a dictator. I'm not either. I don't go down that route. But I want things. I just prefer things to just be done quickly and done right, and get the right people in the room and discussed, and not to block things around it. I don't
Yeah,
accept that. So I set up my own way of working within a bunch of working groups. I got permission to do this. I took over sort of a lot of the standards and guidelines work. One of them was the HTML standards group. Al was part of that. Al was a curiosity because I think Al built the first page on the BBC infrastructure with CSS.
wow.
I found out about it and I was like, "What's going on?" I think he was in education at the time, and I was like, "That this is the stuff. Why aren't we all doing it?" And everyone's going, "Risk, risk, risk," and we're like, "What risk? What risk? Show me the risk." "Oh, it's different. We don't want change." So Al got involved in that working group. There were loads of other amazing people in that working group. But I had the simple way that I structured things is that we worked out what as many of the problem areas are and potentially what some of the questions are. And then we get the people that everyone agrees are the experts in those areas.
Hmm.
So, I wanted to know when the devs talk about JavaScript, whose name do they mention?
Yeah,
It'd be Fraser Pierce or Michael Matthews or whoever. Um, but I want to know the names, and I'm going to go and meet those people, and then I'm going to persuade them to join the group because I need a subject. I need the experts in the room. Then I need to
yeah,
then give them the question to work on. Then we bring it back to the group, discuss it, tidy it up, make sure that there are no holes in it. Ted Page was another one that was in there. He was amazing. He ended up going into document accessibility. But there was loads of these people, and they were phenomenal. And then what my rule was is that there was all the different departments and teams could have someone in the room, and they all had a vote. But if you don't turn up, you voted yes. You can't abstain.
Right.
So send someone else, or you voted yes to what's going on. So turn up, or I'll take it as approval. And you only get to vote no if you've got an objective reason why not.
So
And we
what?
ploughed through the work at incredibly fast rate. And then what we did is then it went out into the open into product. We then tested the living daylights out of it, learned, folded back that work, that data back into the working groups and improved it. So then everything became data driven. And then once we'd figured it out, and it was live in 3 or 4 places and it was working, and we had real live user data to prove that it was working, it then became a guideline.
Real. One anecdotal observation. I mean, I have a Samsung TV or whatever, and it runs Google, whatever the Android operating system, but it has a iPlayer on there. It's got lots, like, it's a
Yeah.
Netflix app. It's really starting to annoy me how everything is a separate app, and you've got to sort of log out of one to get into another.
Well, that's the only place that TV manufacturers make any money anymore because all hardware sold at a loss. So
Yeah, I can believe
yeah,
that.
there's no money in hardware, and so and also the BBC has like a kit of parts. It's like Netflix has a kit of parts, and they give them to Samsung, and Samsung has to build the app into their infrastructure. And then you have the BBC. We had an accreditation team, so all of the which is based in Salford, and there's like a wall of TVs on one of these floors with a load of engineers testing the living daylights out, and they're all pre-production models, and they're all testing the implementations of iPlayer on the hardware, and then giving feedback because they're going, it's not going live until you fix X, Y, and Z because there's
Oh, well,
contracts
that's
in it.
nice. I mean,
Yeah.
what the one thing I've noted between iPlayer and the other commercial apps is that when you try to get out of iPlayer, it comes up with a dialogue that says, "Do you want to stay or do you want to go?"
Mm.
But the focus is on you want to go. In all the other apps, it's
Want to
on
stay?
you want to stay. So it's subtle, but I really like the fact that the iPlayer, realizes that whoever's programmed that realizes that by the time you've got to this dialogue, the
Yeah.
chances are you want to leave, you know?
Yeah, yeah, we're not going to block you. We're just going to
Yeah.
ask politely. There used to be Easter eggs. I need to go and check these out 'cause I haven't checked them for years. They were there up till not long ago. There were Easter eggs in iPlayer
Oh,
that you could find. So even on, I'm going to check. I should have done this on desktop before. So on the desktop version or the browser-based version of it, if you just type 888, then the CFAX 888 comes up and it switched the subtitles
really?
on. That was in there for years,
Oh,
and
nice.
also the volume goes up to 11.
Ah, real.
So yeah, I thought that was always a little bit of spinal tap in there from the
Yes,
early, and
yes,
that was there from
definitely.
launch. So the
Yeah.
volume always went up to 11 on
Oh,
iPlayer.
always want it. Yeah. It is not, I mean, I just the design and usability of these TV apps just really gets on my nerves because
There's some horrendous ones.
yeah, there's
Absolutely
really
awful.
horrendous, and they spend a lot of money on these things. You just make them so it's easy for people to use, please.
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. I've always guessed around this. I think there's a thing that we don't talk about enough in accessibility terms because it's a really hard thing to quantify. But the whole balance of effort and reward. So
Mm,
people, if the reward is greater, people will make a greater effort to it and will accept more difficulty because the reward is greater. So if you're doing a tax return, the reward is incredibly low. All right, because you
yeah,
hate the damn thing the minute you turn. There's no happy reward at the end of it apart from even when it goes in, it's like, crap, did I mess that up? I don't know.
yeah,
Until you get feedback, you've no idea. It's a horrible thing. So you have to be really, really, really good on the accessibility stuff because people
yeah.
are unhappy. They're already turned up unhappy. No one turns up happy to do a tax return. Woo, tax return. God, I've been looking forward to this part of my life. It never happens. So, but if you then want to get to the latest episode of Doctor Who or whatever you're a fan of, you're more likely to put up with a crappier experience, and be still really happy because the joy comes in the reward at the end of it. And so
Yes.
you can't compare the two things. It's a really different. We do because we work in this industry. We see the things, we understand the things, but mostly people don't. They don't think about them is the same. And I think the BBC always put a huge amount of effort into the usability. I think as well, a lot with the other ones is because they're trying to push. They don't want you to leave, as you've already pointed, and
Yeah, yeah.
they want you to not find the thing that you want easily because they want you to see a lot of other stuff. There's
Yeah.
serendipity built into it. So don't make it so hard you can't find it, but don't make it so easy you don't find anything else.
It's like going to the supermarket when
Move it
they
around.
change up the product lines in each lane on a regular
Absolutely.
basis. Yeah.
Absolutely, and so then it's in your head, and you go, "Oh, I'll check out the thing that I saw that looked interesting," and so it becomes more marketing time and more captive. The longer the journey, as long as they're happy enough when they get there,
Yeah, I mean, it
it
doesn't stop me. Like every time I use Netflix, it annoys me that I can't just sort of pushing one button to get out. I've got to go up into a menu to go out. But I know just why they do it because they want people to stay in Netflix, but it doesn't stop me going back to Netflix. It's just an annoyance.
it's an annoyance,
Yeah.
and yeah, the BBC makes no money from iPlayer, so it has no no, there's no benefit in them doing it. Whereas,
Yeah.
the rest of them are commercial organizations. And so, there's a reason for them to not let you go. So,
Well,
they
let's
want their,
let's knock this Rose Scully on the
all
head
right. So
because
the other one I think about Al, the other thing that I have to give him credit for is it was pretty much him and Henny drove the whole mobile accessibility guidelines stuff because, it was Henny's baby in a lot of ways, but Al had become principal developer
yeah,
for sport, and so he was leading the work, and the senior product management in sport have said we want all the 2012 Olympics to be accessible. I'll still argue from a broadcast and digital perspective, not a single Olympics has topped it since. We did 17 channels of subtitling
wow,
on
yeah.
every single event was broadcast in every stage in Red Button, and you could find it on streams and all sorts of stuff. And it was phenomenal, and Al was a massive driving force within that.
And
And
he's
they're a
now
great
back
team.
at BBC.
He's now me. He's the new
What?
me.
Well, yeah, he's better looking than you, but apart
Oh
from that,
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, for
um,
fuck's sake, that's not.
no, no. I mean, I think that's a particularly good photo of him, but
uh,
it's yeah.
yeah, but I mean, set that bar low, mate. It's like
um, so yeah, so he's now back at BBC. He
I've been meaning
obviously
to catch up with him because he's off at Salford every now and again, and I've reached out to him a couple of times, and I'd
I
love to go
haven't
and have a
spoken
brew
to
and
him
find
since he
out.
left
He's
Technological.
well, he left
So,
when he left the BBC. He ended up pretty much founding and setting up gov.uk accessibility.
yeah,
And because that was gov.uk was pretty much all ex-BBC people who were setting it up. Jane
right,
Thornbury, and there was two very senior product guys who set it up, and Tom Loosemore, who was another one of the team that was on the controller internet team I was on for a while. But yeah, that was where it all came out of. Um, and uh, and the amount of people that have always sent me, oh, what about the BBC's guidelines on forms? Why aren't they as good as the gov.uk? And I was like, on the entire estate of the BBC estate, I think there are 5 forms. That's it.
right,
We're like, we don't do forms. Their entire estate is forms. So they're
yeah.
brilliant. If you want forms, go to gov.uk. If you want streaming, come to us.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that I recently had to fill in my an attendance allowance for my brother,
Hmm.
and I had the form which I'd printed out, and I had it there, and it was just so hard work, so much hard work to actually fill out the printed form, the
Mm.
actual document, and then they'd set up in between when I first looked and the second time I looked, they got an online service. Took me about 20 minutes. It was
Yeah.
so much easier.
The accessibility teams in across gov.uk are amazing.
Yeah, really
Absolutely
good.
amazing. And I really hope that we don't end up with the government screwing it up, which that of course they will do. You know, someone will come along and knows better and trash it all and then wonder why it's all gone. You know, it happens and they've been, you know, there's some amazing people. There's some really good accessibility people
Yeah,
in those teams, which is a shame. So, you know, so I've got to say big shout out to Al actually. You know, the
yeah. No,
work that he
no.
did around
Al,
on sport was amazing.
love me some Al. I'll have to
Yeah.
catch up with him again. He doesn't live far from where I live. He was living in Epsom, which is just a bit further down the road from me. Um, but yeah, I'll have to catch up with him as well.
Mm.
Um, so lastly but not leastly, or maybe leastly on here, I don't know. Is who? Do you know this person?
You've wonderfully squashed the image as well. I love the fact that, you know,
Yeah,
I know his face. Why do I know that? Who is it?
it's Jeremy Key from Clear Left. He's
Oh God, yeah. Yes.
well known. He says, on the speaker circuit, writes, owns a
I don't
development.
think we've ever met. I do know his face. I've seen him on stuff and I've probably seen
Well, I've met
event,
him
but
and I enjoy spending time with you more than I do with him, but that's me.
sorry,
So,
Jeremy.
yeah. No, 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 it's fine. And, I mean, there's just, for some reason, there's some people that, for no good reason that I have in my head that I don't gel with, you know? But
Yeah.
then, but the funny thing is, as I've said, I mean, I can feel this with you because I've always liked your brand of madness. Felt an affinity with it, but over the years, I've worked with Carl Groves.
Yeah.
I've been friends with various people or known them, but until I got them on here and talked to them, I felt like I just feel a renewed sense of positivity about people after talking to them.
All right. Yeah. I'll send you some suggestions. You need to get David Tisserand on, and he's one
Oh
of my
yeah,
he's one
yeah,
of my
please.
favorites. I love David to bits. He's
Yeah, send
just
me some
so one of the
suggestions. I mean,
nicest people again you'll ever meet in the world. He's brilliant.
Tisserand,
Yeah.
is he from where's
He's
he
at
from?
Ubisoft.
Ubisoft, yes,
Yeah.
he's Billy's boss. I was going to
But
get Billy on.
oh yeah, Billy's great. First time I
Because
met David, we met at in California. It was Ian Hamilton found out that we were both in the same hotel.
right,
We worked out we were both at the same we were both in the same place and messaged us very early in the morning and contacts us. You two need to meet. And so I was ended up messaging back. I was really still massively drunk from the night before. And I turned up in breakfast, early breakfast, to meet this lovely French Canadian bloke. And we held onto the same table together because the pair of us were absolutely steaming because we'd both been out till the early hours of the morning. And we were both hanging onto the table and trying to have a meeting
yeah,
and failing in every way, means or point. And it was one of the I just clicked with him. I just thought he was absolutely brilliant. But he hadn't set up the accessibility team yet. He was wanting to do this, and he just wanted to know, how did you do it? What do I need to do? And I gave him some tips. I gave him a few things, and he tried them out, and they seemed to work. And he built up from there. And he's done amazing things, which are very brave and very unusual. But I'll
yeah,
let him tell you the story. But yeah, there's
yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
will.
he's
I'll
a great
get.
guy.
I mean, we Petrological did some work with Ubisoft, and I think we've got a testimonial from David Tisserand. Isn't it
Yeah,
David?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
See,
yeah.
that's what I mean. I knew it
He
was
goes
Tisserand.
out. I don't know if he still goes to raves, but you know, in this is where is he? Montreal in Canada. Yeah, because
Yeah,
he's big into well, was back. It's into the raves, and he was telling me once about a rave in the woods that he was at, and this bear showed up. Because this is Canada, and the bear's
Yeah.
just wandering around, and everyone's having a great time. The rave doesn't stop. There's just a bear there, this confused, like, what's going
Okay.
on? And I was just like, that's just the best rave. I wanted to be there.
I know that we could talk for, we could continue to talk, but I've got to cut it off soon because I'm dying to go to the toilet. But, well, it's true. I told you about
There
my
we go. There we
problems
go.
earlier.
Just clench those cheeks for another couple of
Yeah, yeah,
minutes.
that's what I'm trying to do. Before I go, I wanted to ask you, so after you left the BBC, you've got to keep it short though. What have
Oh
you been
God.
doing since? What are you doing now? You know, what
Bloody hell.
irons do you have
That's
on the
such a
fire?
massively complicated question. So
How are you making a crust?
well, the crust bit is I'm working with various companies to organizations to help them set up accessibility functions or supporting the development of a function. And it's
Do
usually
you
with
have a website?
organizations that have products that don't sit underneath standard things. So my first gig was with Miro, was to help them set up, and I helped them find Philip Strain. I said the first thing is you need to know is you don't need a web accessibility agency because this is not web accessibility. This is an open world game that people come to collaborate in, and so we need to learn from gaming. We need to understand the product and ask better questions than is it compliant, and
Yep.
that's not going to answer anything here because this is not compliance. And I was like, you need a design researcher who understands inclusive design. And we found Philip Strain from Spotify, I think he was at the time, and build an R&D team because you're a part of the map and it just says, here be dragons. Nobody
Yeah.
knows. And so they've been going from strength to strength. And so I'm doing work with been doing work with with Hayden. So Hayden and I have both been supporting Kath Moonen in
Oh
her
yeah.
work at Bentley because they make CAD systems. What the hell? How do you make a CAD system accessible? And I'm doing work with all sorts of different bits that
Kath
fall
Noonan,
outside.
that's a name from the blast from the
You
past.
need
But
to get Kath on this.
yeah, I should.
She's
I mean, every time I
great.
see her, it's always really nice to see her. But I think I saw her a couple of years ago. It's after the state of the browser. But yeah, no, no,
She's great. So that's my
yeah.
crust stuff. But then I've got some other work going on at the minute with Michael Matthews, and I've been working together ever since. I did work for Diageo for a couple of years, and so we built up the similar kind of documentation driven development framework for them that we did at the BBC. And
So you're
that was good
essentially you're
fun.
consulting.
I'm consulting on that, but then I'm doing some really odd things as well. So today I was at a meeting because I'm getting a project. I've really leaned into AI. I really love my LLM pals, and we have long, deep philosophical chats about all sorts of interesting things. And I think that an effect called, is it the Eisenlung effect, which is is it is it Eistelung? It's a German name. I can't remember. It says something along the lines of the negative effect of previous experience. It's about negative effects of previous experience when solving new problems or using new tools. And I think this is one of the things that everyone's suffering from because what they've done is they've gone, okay, we used to do accessibility auditing. Why don't we get an
Yeah.
LLM to do accessibility auditing? Which is to me is one of the most stupid things to do
Well, yeah,
because it's not what they're good, it's not what they're designed to do. The
yeah,
clue is in the name. They're a large language model.
yeah.
They're very good at pattern recognition. They're very good, and okay, coding is a language. But I would sit there
It's
and go, why don't we instead, why leaning into fixing shit? Why don't we lean into prevention and managing? They'd be much better at that. Why don't
yeah.
we lean into the governance side of stuff? Because once they get a concept, once you teach them about a thing and you set up rules, they're very, very good at applying them. And this is one of the problems because just out of the box, I don't think we'll ever fix them out of the box. But when you're working with an instance of it within an organization, you can build
Yeah, well, that's
governance
yeah,
in that. And
but
that's,
also that has a defined sort of knowledge source as well.
Yeah. So I'm dealing with. I've got a couple of projects. One of them is a really interesting one because I've been doing a little bit of work within theatre. And I'm working with my son on this. So we had long chats ages ago about the way that drama and inclusion is not working the same way. And this was started out looking at films and TV, is that it's not the same as other kinds of broadcast. Because when you look at inclusion within broadcast spaces, it's run very much like an HR kind of thing. It's about getting people in there, giving people jobs, giving them training, getting faces on screens, getting good journalists out there like Gary O'Donoghue, who had the best nickname at the BBC because he was called God, because Gary O'Donoghue was just too long for anyone. So the first time when I took over the AT team, and we were talking about the JAWS users because there were loads of them. There was about 150 JAWS users at the BBC, and someone said, "Oh, God's just been in charge and he's having problems with JAWS." And I was like, did I hear that right? I'll let that one go." And yeah, well, I was speaking to God the other day. Well, God emailed me, and I was thinking I've either slipped into another life or something. It took me a while to find out it's Gary O'Donoghue. Anyway, so we realised there's a problem here, because no one measures or has any decent measurement of inclusion in drama, because if you can do it within factual and journalism and stuff, because people are themselves, they're presenters, they're reporters, they're announcers, they're whatever they are, journalists and stuff, they're being themselves. But when you move into the world of drama, you move into the world where people are not being themselves, they're being someone else, they're portraying other lives, they're bringing something of themselves to it, but they're also masking and changing. Wearing a mask is part of being an actor. So how does it work? And so no one's ever really cracked it, because this bit over here is HR, very much diversity in HR, and very effective, works really well. It's total dog shit when it comes to telling stories. It doesn't work. You can't work it. It's a creative space, and so you need something else. And so Zach, son's an actor, but he said to me, he said, he gave me a couple of things. He gave me the starting points, this idea of a way of dealing with this as an interesting creative opportunity. And he gave me these two principles. I love starting with principles. And I've not had a chance to tell you why I think POUR is wrong. But I spoke to Jim Thatcher about this on a podcast with Mike Paciello a couple of months ago, because I've always said there's a missing principle. It should have an
You
S on
did
the end.
speak to Jim Thatcher about it a couple of months ago because he's dead.
When?
Jim Thatcher.
Yeah.
Jim
When did he
Thatcher.
die?
He died about 3 or 4 years ago at
Who was
least.
it? Oh shit.
Mike Paciello is not dead, but it wouldn't be Jim Thatcher, it'd be another
You sure it
Jim.
wasn't? No. Who am I getting confused with? Sorry, this is a senior moment.
It's absolutely fine.
I'm now having sort of freak of did I dream this?
Um,
But anyway, so Zach gave me these two principles, and he said that, which I found really useful. He said, look, creativity is about making interesting choices, and disability can be an interesting choice, which is really good. And he also said that putting a disabled person on a stage or on a screen, for that matter, is a postmodernist act, in the fact that their presence changes the relationship with the audience, because it immediately starts people's preconceptions, their biases, everything come into play. This is the same in any form of diversity. Sort of in the early days, probably, the first, I don't know, black actor to play Hamlet.
yeah, yeah.
There's a moment where suddenly this is not, this is new. This changes our relationship, and everyone in the audience then has a different relationship to that character based on their own biases and preconceptions. And so we started discussing these, and we suddenly realized that actually, if you add lenses to those principles, you then start having a framework that means you can analyze scripts. And so disability happens in three ways in stories. It's either explicit, So here is Richard III. We know Richard is disabled. You know, he's it's the first play about ableism. He suffers a great deal of ableism. Okay, he's a psychopath at the same time, but he's also on the receiving end of a huge amount of race. And we
Yeah.
know historically, even though the play isn't, it's based on history. It's not a historical play. It's a political play. But we know in reality he also was disabled, not as in the play, but you know it wasn't a factual play.
Yeah.
But so we know that's an explicit. Implicit is where they probably are. There's clues. So you could take, and Zach's a massive Shakespeare nerd, and so we ended up leaning heavily into Jacobean theatre. So you could take a character like Lancelot Gobbo in The Merchant of Venice, and two reasons why he's implicitly disabled is one of them is that his role is a fool, and traditionally fools were disabled people
Right.
because they were not seen then as a physical threat to the person in charge. You can criticize, but you have no designs on power, so you're in a safe spot. Don't overstep the mark, mate. But no one else in the room is going to criticize the king. The fools allowed that grace, and often a physically disabled person.
So
And
what's the outcome
and
of
the
this
other,
work?
well, the other part of it is that gobbo is an Italian medieval slang word for hunchback,
Right.
and so it's implied by the bard, by the job that he has and the name that he has, it's probably a disabled character, even though it's not described, because the
Yeah.
idea of disability is a 20th century construct, a cultural
Gotcha.
construct,
Gotcha.
and so you can't you. But you start when you start applying that, and then incidental is the other one, is just by having a disabled actor play that without changing the text. How does that change the subtext?
Yeah.
And so we've then started building out tooling, and this is one of my favorite projects at the minute. And I'm working with a couple of big theaters around this, and it's started building out tooling to analyze scripts to find disability or look for the disability related creative questions before casting.
Oh
What
yeah.
would happen if? So it's not looking for answers. It's not saying this and thou shalt not. It's not like policy
Yeah.
language.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's to give the director and the casting director something interesting to look at.
Some
You know,
insight into
yeah,
yeah.
not just insight, but a creative question.
Yeah.
How would the power dynamic change? What happens to do with surveillance or gender politics if this changes? Why not? What would
And this
happen?
is using an LLM.
Yeah, and a hell of a lot of all sorts of stuff that we've built, analytics tools or tooling around it. And it just started out as an interesting project and it's now turning into something real.
Sounds well, it sounds very interesting. Now, so are you available for work or you've got too much work?
Depends if it's interesting. I only work on things I'm interested in.
So how do people get in contact with you? I mean, do you have
I've
a website or whatever?
LinkedIn, just LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
I've never bothered building a website, and it's one of those things I keep meaning to do it, and then something else comes along, and
Well, as when I publish, once we've gone through the rigorous process of you reviewing your
I'll
performance.
stick it out there. There's nothing. I don't think there's
Yeah, I don't
anything.
think that, yeah, but
Haven't got onto that
anyway,
yet.
that's the process. I'll give it to you. Have a look at it. If you want to send an email straight back, and say, yeah, it's great.
No.
No, yeah. Um, I just got to do it to cover my own ass, really, for the lawyers. Everything
Yeah.
that no,
I know it's fine. I mean, I
yeah,
should have doing all of those pictures you put up. My response should have been, "We are just good friends."
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
standard approach to get out of it. You know?
Or
Do you know
appeal to
Patrick
the
Lauker?
American
We are just
audience.
good friends.
Yeah. Thanks, Gareth. It's been illuminating and interesting, and the conversation's gone everywhere as I'd hoped it would.
Yeah, absolutely. I've
And
thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you ever want this lunatic back, I'm very, very happy.
of course, I'll just as I had to get Hayden back, I will put you on that list as well. I'm
Yeah,
I'm trying to. I've got like about 10 more people to do. Then I'm going to have a break, and I'm actually trying to because I didn't. I thought I'd do half a dozen, but it just snowballed. And I enjoy it. And as I said, I really it gives me the opportunity to speak to people in an atmosphere that or a context that makes it really comfortable for
Do you
me.
know what? I've suddenly realised my senior moment. Of course, it's not bloody Jim Thatcher. It's Greg van der Heyden, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I
Fuck
can
me. I mean, I
understand.
thought you were two people. I've now converted them into one. So
Yeah.
I did
No, no,
this.
that's yeah.
It was Greg. It was, of
It
course, it
makes
was
sense
Greg.
now. It
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. That
Um,
was
the
yes. You can
ghost
cut.
of
You can cut my senior moment out.
oh, really? Um,
Don't work with him. He can't even fucking remember who people are.
yeah. I look. I'm getting to the point now where like I my legs are aching and I
Oh
just
yeah,
all this sort of shit is happening and I'm thinking I
yeah.
don't want to. I mean, you're not. How old are you?
He's him. 50,
62.
57.
57. You see, I'm 62. You're young, mate.
I am.
You're living the life. You've
I
got
am.
5 years on me. You
Oh yeah.
lazy bastard.
I feel it with all of the pains and various bits and
Yeah.
pieces. And I had a fall during lockdown. Right. This is one of this. This is how stupid I am. I had a fall down in lockdown, and I really hurt my shoulder. And it hurt when I lifted it up. Really hurt. Really screaming. And I couldn't go to hospital. And I was convinced I hadn't broken it. You know, I could move fingers and everything was fine. So my solution to that was if it hurts lifting my arm up, don't lift my arm up. So I didn't raise my arm for a year and a half.
Bloody hell. Right.
I did everything with the left hand and kept this one
Yeah.
down here. And it wasted a load of muscles, which meant that every time I met it, those bones now clashing against each other. So I was in even more pain. So I finally, post lockdown, get to see a doctor, and they're like, "You idiot." And I was like, "Well, I don't like taking painkillers. And if something hurts when you do it, don't do it. You
So
know,
what
Just
were you
take
supposed to have done? Just
a lot of exercise, physiotherapy, all sorts of bits and
right.
pieces, which I ended up doing afterwards. And now I can move the thing again. But it was,
Well,
because
that's good.
I mean that's just me. It's like if it hurts, stop doing it.
Well, yeah. Gareth is just Gareth. On that note, thanks, Gareth. It's been wonderful, and hopefully, I'll see you again in person. I
Oh
think
yeah,
the last time I saw you, where was it? Was it
Houses of Parliament.
the House of Parliament? Yes,
They'd
that was
asked
a
me
long
to
time.
chair a discussion about the lenses things, the Ray-Ban
That's right.
glasses,
Yes, yes.
and
That's
asked me to not say anything controversial.
oh, really?
Yeah,
But you didn't say anything
I
controversial.
didn't. I didn't.
No.
It was a really lovely event. It was Fight for Sight. We're running it. I worked on
Yeah.
their branding system. So got to know them. And their chairman is someone you should have on here. He's brilliant.
All right. Well, just
Uh,
give me
I'm going to give you some
leave me the
intros.
names.
I'm going to give you some names. Yeah.
Yeah. All
And
right
some,
then. Thanks again.
all right, mate. See
Catch
you
you
soon.
later.
Take
Bye,
care.
Gareth.
Bye.
Bye.